Welcome back, everyone. It's me, Matt. Hope you're having a wonderful day. You know, being in the armed forces, both in the British Army and the Canadian Army, you learn a little bit about how different militaries do things and the way in which doctrine and tactics change a little bit in country to country. But the basis of battle simulation is pretty standard across most militaries, especially within NATO. What we're looking at today, folks, is what are the kind of things you are going to experience when you're going through training that is involved with battle simulation. What is battle simulation? Well, it's pretty self-explanatory, exactly to the point, maybe a rhetorical question, so to speak. It's basically situations that you're going to be placed in, or experiences that you're going to be placed in, that put you into an environment where it is just like the real thing. It's very difficult to really put, battle into context. I'm, first of all, not an infantryman. Okay, I'm going to put that very clear. I have been involved in firefights in Afghanistan, but I'm not going to try and say I'm some wholeheartedly battle-hardened, experienced soldier. I don't know every single ounce of, military experience in terms of battle procedure and all that sort of stuff. That's not what I'm trying to go with today, but I just want to give you a little insight as to what battle simulation things can you be exposed to if you're joining or have already joined and haven't quite got to that part of your training. So, certain things that you can be exposed to in terms of battle simulation. Let's start off with the most simplistic form of battle simulation: blank firing adapters or blank rounds. Okay. Obviously, most people know what blank rounds are, how they work. It's not obviously a real projectile, it is just a bang and a flash, and the empty cartridge is still ejected, and it makes you feel as if you've actually put a round down range. Some people have probably fired these before. If you haven't, they're a lot of fun, okay? Obviously, still just as dangerous as live projectiles if you're not using them correctly, but they do add to that battle simulation and give you a little bit more sort of involvement and, I guess, ambiance of the battle experience. Actually putting rounds down range is a little difficult sometimes. You can go into live firing exercises where you're actually engaging paper targets or reactive targets like fallen plate, but blank rounds allows you to shoot at one another, and it's fun. Honestly, I do enjoy going into an exercise and putting some blank rounds down range. Of course, things like anti-tank weapons do not have blank rounds. That's not how it works. You have a separate type of training system, which I'll talk about in a second. But blank rounds just give you a little bit more sort of experience as to, okay, when rounds are going down range and I can hear my troops in contact or I'm being engaged, I know it's happening. We've all been in the exercises where someone is shouting bang, bang, bang because we don't have blank rounds. Come on, we've all been there. Let's be honest here. And it doesn't really add to the training value. When blank rounds are being fired, it puts you in the mindset of, okay, this is feeling a little bit more like I'm in a contact or actually putting some firepower down range. Now, one thing that can be added to the rifle and in your entire setup actually is a TES equipment, which is basically a reactive laser tag system. Now, this is really one of the best systems you can use for battle simulation because the options are almost endless. Now, this is not your simple laser tag that you're probably used to, which we used to play in the 90s, those of you who are old enough to remember laser tag. It's definitely not that, but it has the same kind of principle. Okay, so the soldier, as you can see, these soldiers are actually wearing it, are wearing reactive laser sort of, I guess, points on each point of the body and the harness and on the helmet. This system can be very, very complex. There's some really high-tech equipment out there. This one seems a little bit more simplistic, but basically each system has a battery pack and the system is connected to a computer, and that computer registers whether or not you've been hit by another, I guess, player, which is the op4 or opposition force that you're engaging or being engaged by. So it's a really cool system because it actually allows you to fire your blank rounds and see if you've hit someone. And of course you don't actually find out if you've hit them straight away because normally in these kind of situations people kind of cheat a little bit and still put a few more rounds down at you. It's almost like a really modernized adult airsoft. I hate to say that, but it is. Some people, I've seen it in the past, they're wearing this equipment, they put an extra few rounds squeezed down at you, and you are like, well, dude, you're dead. I just shot you in the face. But, that's how it goes. But there are also systems that don't even allow you to keep shooting. They'll allow you to fire rounds, but the laser attachment to your weapon system will actually shut off once you've been hit. I remember being in BATUS, or British Army Training Unit Suffield. The system was pretty primitive. It wasn't high-tech, but it did what it needed to do. You know, if you got shot by someone, it would tell you, you have been shot, you are dead. We used to call it going black, which basically means that you are out of action, and you'd have to go back to almost like a respawn point and get reset up by what's called the God Gun. The God Gun was the little tiny gun that the range staff would have, or the safety staff. They'd scan you in, and you say, okay, we'll set you back out again. You go back to the, I guess, forming up area and start again, or get reattached to your squad, your platoon, and wherever else. So these guys are using that equipment, as you can see right now. Different systems have different ways of doing things. You know, you can be attacked by indirect artillery fire. The command post can actually control, I guess, sort of simulation and simulated artillery fire into your position. So it doesn't always have to be, you know, blank rounds or small arms fire that can take you out. It can be just about anything. And it applies for tanks too. You know, armored fighting vehicles or soft skin vehicles can be rigged up with this stuff. And it adds to that battle simulation experience. And honestly, if you haven't done it before and you have the opportunity to do it, do it. It's a lot of fun. It's a challenge. It's frustrating. Also, you know, this technology is being run through the ringer, rode hard and put away wet, and sometimes it just doesn't work the way you want it to. I've had it many times before where I'm sat comfortable inside of my warrior in the driver or commander's hatch, and all of a sudden my thing starts bleeping. I'm not even wearing it, and it's inside the vehicle, and it's telling me I'm dead. Well, clearly that's not the case. There are malfunctions, but for the most part it works pretty good. And it is enjoyable to get involved and actually see, you know, that you've actually engaged something and that you've completed your mission. But for the most part, I think, you know, we're going to see this increase in its capabilities and its capacity in the future. They're really going to expand on this technology a lot, I think. And you can see it now. You know, this is a pretty older system, I think, that they're using in this footage, but there are a lot more modernized versions that have so much more capability. Another big part of battle simulation is casualties. Okay, so, you know, when you are in this kind of exercise with the kind of laser tag system, you will have to act as if you have casualties. So if you get hit rhetorically by this system, you're not just kind of set there and you say, oh, I'll just walk back to the spawn point. Sometimes that happens, but not really. You'll be acted as a casualty and, you know, treated as such, and literally treated as such. They'll put, you know, fake tourniquets on you, first field dressings, Ashman chest shields for sucking bullet chest wounds, all that sort of stuff. They will do literal first aid or battle, you know, first aid on you, because there's no point running through the motions. Okay, they actually want to make sure that if you go down, that the medics are able to do their job. So it's fun because sometimes when you get hit and you're knocked out, you're kind of just there for the ride, thrown on a stretcher or carried out by foot. You don't want to be the guy that normally gets hit first, because you're the first one that's going to get everyone very, very tired, dragging you on a stretcher or on a poncho out of that location. It's draining on your body trying to deal with casualties. As horrible as this sounds, you know, casualties are a burden to the fighting force. You know, they are a game changer. They reduce your capability of fighting and reduce your ability to keep moving forward. So when you have casualties in this kind of scenario or this kind of battle simulation, it just really hampers the way in which you can, you know, maneuver your force. I remember going through my British Army leadership course and having casualties in a situation like this with this equipment on, and my goodness, it racked up quickly. I was, you know, going into all-round defense, protecting 3 or 4 casualties. I'm like, okay, we're almost at the point of being combat ineffective, but it was fun. It was so much fun. Not so much for the people dragging these guys around. I must admit, I was one of the first people that got shot in an exercise once, being a big guy, 6'3", weighing a hefty, you know, 800 pounds. I'm not kidding. I weigh about that. No, I'm kidding. People do not enjoy carrying the big boys around. It's not fun. So battle simulation in medical terms is definitely the same way as it would be normally in the battlefield when they do situations like this. Another really good battle simulation is fake artillery rounds, or simnitions. This doesn't have to be just for the artillery. It can be for IEDs. They're basically little miniature explosives or pyrotechnics that can be thrown around to simulate being bombarded by artillery, or, you know, an IED strike, or engagement from an anti-tank weapon, whatever it may be. And again, it just puts you on edge a little bit more, because when they go off, they are bloody loud, and they definitely let you know that you are being engaged by artillery, and adds to that ambiance of, yeah, this is real stuff that I'm training to do. I'm not just playing around in the woods with guns here. I'm actually got a job to do, and, you know, if I was being engaged by artillery, what do I do? I've had it many instances before going through training where, you know, an artillery simnition goes off and everybody's just stood there. It's like, guys, what are you doing? Like, it's a simnition. It sounds like a simnition, you know, it's bang, that whistle knows that a round's coming in. You should be dumping your kit to the floor, including you getting into cover and you know, getting away from that bombardment. So those are the kind of things that keep you on your toes. It's so much fun though. You know, when you're in a full contact and you got simnitions going off, blank rounds going off, your vest is beeping like a crazy thing and telling you you are being hit in the right leg, blah blah blah. It just adds to that battle simulation experience, and it is really, really enjoyable. If you haven't done it before, look forward to it. I know in the Army we take it very seriously because it's expensive to do this kind of training too. It's not simple as, you know, let's rig this stuff up and off we go. It's not something that's commonly used. I know for us in the Canadian Armed Forces we don't use it as much, you know, in the artillery anyway, because we're not involved with small arms engagements as much as, say, the infantry. So if you're in the infantry, you're definitely going to be using this stuff a lot more. Another big part of battle simulation is the scenarios that you're placed in. You know, a lot of the times when you're going against what's called opposition forces, or OPFOR, they're given quite strict instructions on how to engage you or how to attack you somewhat. Sometimes when you go into certain training exercises, they take very, very seriously prisoners of war, the way in which you gather intel, the way in which you handle obstacles, minefields. There's tons and tons of things you can get placed upon that add to that battle simulation experience. Let's talk a little bit about prisoners of war. Okay, so, you know, coming across normal OPFOR forces, you tend to just engage them, they die, and you move on. But certain scenarios you're given can be a lot more strategic, a lot more sort of tactical in the way in which you handle prisoners of war, whether it be, you know, gathering intel from them, searching them, taking them into a prisoner of war detention area, escorting them to that location. It adds a whole new dynamic to the way in which you handle a situation, especially if you're a platoon, squad commander, section commander. It really kind of changes the way in which you have to lead, because you're not only now leading your troops to engage the enemy or defend from a position, you're having to deal with a whole new scenario of prisoners of war, things like that. In the context of, say, IEDs or minefields, they normally don't just sort of roll out mine tape and say, hey, you can't go through here, this is an obstacle. They actually try and place, you know, fake mines, fake IEDs in locations so that you can practice your battle procedure for handling those kind of obstacles, whether it be, you know, simple as the bayonet drill, you know, poking and prodding, moving forward, dedicating a lane, to getting your, you know, bar detector out or your metal detector and doing sweeps of IEDs. It's really interesting stuff, and again creates that immersive battle experience that keeps you on your toes, because I've been on many exercises where you go through what I call going through the motions, right? And it just doesn't add to that training value. It's really hard to get in the mindset and the mentality of, you know, this is pretty intensive right now. I've got to keep my wits about me. I'm not saying, you know, we wouldn't normally keep our wits about us as soldiers, you know, if you didn't have blank rounds and you didn't have all these battle simulation additives, but it does help you feel like you're doing more than just running around in the woods. Saying we sometimes get used to in the armed forces, especially in the army, is with notional ammunition or notional experiences. Okay, so normally when you're getting training going on, your instructor or someone will say to you, there is a notional minefield ahead of you, which basically means it's not actually there, it's pretend, but you've got to pretend it's there. You've got to make out as if it is there. That doesn't add to that battle experience mindset. It kind of just, it's harder to get involved and into the mindset of it all, you know. So if you do come across some of these battle simulations, and you have come across them, I'd love to hear about them. What do you feel about them? Have you come across, you know, simnitions? Have you come across, you know, the laser tag systems? I know there is actually some really cool training, which I've never done before, which is the kind of simnition paintball. So it's a very, very expensive, from what I've heard, practice where you actually have rounds that have little tiny paintballs inside of them. Similar to a normal round, instead of the projectile being a bullet, it is a paintball. So you're not using actual paintball guns, you're using a standard rifles. For instance, with these soldiers here, you're using the standard M4, but your ammunition with the 5.56 would have a paintball in the end. That seems like it could get really interesting, also rather dangerous, right? But a lot of fun. I've seen a lot of, you know, close quarter battle, fibula kind of situations. They're busting through doors using that kind of stuff. I would love to try that. Honestly, I think it'd be a ton of fun, and that's a whole new level of battle simulation right there. I mean, you're literally putting a round downrange and seeing where that hit on that person. If you got hit by one of those things, you'd know about it pretty quickly, even with the heavy body armor and heavy setups that we have with the plate carriers and tack vests and chest rigs. You're probably going to know pretty quick if one of those rounds hit you. I'm pretty sure they're not going to put it in a 7.62 variant. Maybe they do, but I don't think that would be the case. And of course, anti-tank weapons, you're not going to send a paintball of an anti-tank weapon like a law down range. That would be a really bad day. Maybe they just put another 5.56 projectile in there as a paintball. But if you have experienced that, please let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear about your own, battle simulation experiences and the things that you've gone through and what added value to your training, because I'm always curious, what makes you feel like your training is more effective than it would be if it didn't have those kind of battle simulations. Please let me know in the comment section below. I appreciate you all stopping by today. As I said, this is more just sort of a background as to what sort of battle simulations you could come across. If you did enjoy the video, please leave me a like. If you want to be notified of any upcoming content in the future, please go check out my little bell button there by the subscribe button. And if you want to support my channel, you can go check out my Patreon page or PayPal in the description box below. Have a wonderful day, everyone. All the best. Bye-bye.